Warning, graphic content ahead. Viewer discretion is advised.
My burn was only a 14% burn, hands and face. 14% doesn't seem like much, but it kept me off work for 7 months, intense hand therapy for 5 months, and scars for the rest of my life. I got to the hospital, they told my family, we literally don't know if he's gonna survive or not. I'm Jason Brosen, been a master electrician for almost 30 years. It's what I love to do. Now I'm a professional safety trainer. Don't be me, right? That's the most important thing I can say. Don't be me. Don't make bad decisions like that.
NFPA presents The Jason Brosen Story, Don't Be Me. A powerful real-life account of an electrician's experience with an arc flash, his journey of resilience and recovery, and the life-saving role of NFPA 70E in electrical safety.
My task for the day was to install a breaker in a 2500 amp piece of gear. It was 12208 equipment, which smashes the common misconception that you cannot have a sustained arc flash at that lower voltage level. I'm here to tell you that you can. We chose to do energized to reduce the hassle for the hotel. We should not have done that energized. There was no reason to do it energized. We could have come back at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, shut that gear down, did what we needed to do, and got out of there expeditiously. I still knew I needed to wear PPE doing that task, but I chose not to do it because I'd reached that level of complacency that a lot of master electricians do after 10, 20 years in the field. And they just thought, you know, hey, I've done this a million times. It's pretty low risk since I'm smarter than this hazard, and it's not the case. So the company I worked for, we knew about arc flash hazard, but we didn't really understand arc flash hazard. We knew it was present, but just like an electrician can become complacent, so can a business, right? You don't have accidents and you don't think, hey, I don't need this. And being complacent as I was, I had no PPE, no safety glasses, no earplugs, no gloves, metal tools, bare hand work, energized. Foolish, foolish, foolish decision, but I just decided to move forward. So my task to put that breaker in required me to cut some tape off of the energized bus bar. So I made the foolish decision to take my metal utility knife, I leaned in really close and started cutting the tape off of that energized bus bar. About halfway through is when I called my boss and said, hey, this is precarious, we might want to shut this off. And being complacent as I was, we talked through it and it was like, well, just be careful. So I actually went through that and got through that task without blowing myself up. So after I got the tape cut off that bus bar, I needed to put that breaker in. That breaker would not fit. I couldn't get the breaker to fit in between those gaps, right? So I needed to tweak that bus bar down. Grab my fuse holders out of my bag, slide those in that gap. Had no idea, not even for an instant, that it had a metal rivet in the end of that tool. So the arc blast happens after I stick that tool in there. It's in slow-mo. I could feel the cycles, just like that. It's just noise. So we're only talking an eighth of a second here. So after that happens, I say to myself, oh my God, I'm on fire. And I start patting my coat, just kind of doing the stand up, stop, drop, and roll. I see a door crack open. As soon as I see that light, I yell out to that guy, am I on fire? So I exit the room, it's full of smoke, I can't see anything. Head to the nearest bathroom, start to gain my senses back, look in the mirror to check out how bad I'm burnt. I didn't think it would be that bad, it was pretty bad. As soon as the accident happened, I heard the fire alarms went off in the building. The fire department was just minutes away. They came out, I instantly started making phone calls to my family. The fire department and the EMTs had a sense of urgency, right? I didn't understand it at the time and until much later when I talked to them and got my footage of my accident, and they were very surprised that I was doing as well as I was. For the first several minutes, I'm gonna say I was probably in denial about the level of the accident. I got to the hospital, they told my family, we literally don't know if he's gonna survive or not. The results of that accident were about $1.2 million. $220,000 was my hospital bill at 14%. It gets much worse than me. I'm a very minor stat. Our OSHA violations were around $65,000. So there's a real and present cost to arc flash injuries, and they happen all the time. So when I got home from the hospital, after a little over 2 weeks, I couldn't drive for 2 months. I couldn't put on my pants, button shirts. You can't even wipe your butt, right? Which, speaking as a man, and I was the sole provider of my family, That is tough, right? It really affects your pride, your emotional, your mental health, not to mention your physical health, and the pain that lasts for months and months and months. Phantom nerve pains that I still have today, right? Even from 2009, I still have nerves that itch and drive me crazy. There's a lot of things that you're dependent on your family to take care of you. It's really tough, and that's why there's a high level of emotional, mental problems that are caused just like combat injuries, right? With arc flash injury. But eventually, it led me to what I do today, which is safety training, and it's a calling. Right? I believe that God saved my life because a lot of people have something more important to do than myself. Maybe I can be a part of saving their lives, helping people not go through what I went through. I've trained thousands of people. A common misconception I see is when I visit job sites to do audits and do training, I'll ask them to see their PPE. And when they don't have shock and arc flash PPE, which is very common by the way, I ask them, how in the world are you going to keep safe when you're working energized? So, well, we don't work energized. Well, how do you check for absence of voltage? Well, we lock it out. And I say, oh, that's great. Well, that's step 6 of the electrically safe work condition. The process for de-energizing work is energized work. Part of the steps of the electrically safe work condition per OSHA and NFPA 70E, it's all pretty much energized work until you get to that step 7 where you've checked for absence of voltage. So we've established that de-energizing it is energized work. And then when you re-energize, it's energized work. So there's only a small section in between when you're doing your task that's actually de-energized. The beginning and end of that require full PPE to do so. When you're out there and you decide not to use your PPE, of course it's easier. Of course it's more efficient, and 99.9% of the time you're going to get through it safe. The problem is, after you've done that, you've trained your brain that it's okay, right? The normalization of that, right? So now, every time you do that task, you're just going to skip your PPE because you said, hey, I survived that. Nobody got hurt. I got it done quicker. I'm good, right? The problem is your decisions are like a row of dominoes. Every time you make a bad decision, you flip one of those dominoes. Complacency builds that. In life, if you ever do something and you go, I don't know about that, or you hear that still small voice they talk about, you got to stop what you're doing and go through that risk assessment process. That would have saved me and my family months and years of agony. Most arc flashes are caused by the electrician. Every electrician says, I don't know what happened. It just blew up. But the reality is, you undo a wire, it springs over, you stick a tool in there, something falls in there, you pull a cover and a part falls. It's almost always caused by the electrician. You are the last line of defense in your safety. There's nobody more in charge of your safety, not your boss, not your company. If you make a poor choice, it's going to cost you your life and your family, their provider. Don't be me. That's the most important thing I can say. Don't be me. Don't make bad decisions like that.